We're live. We are live. Hello, everybody.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
there's no
I don't.
countdown?
Our countdown didn't work, but we are here. Here we are.
Good morning, everybody. I think there was a glitch at Mission Control.
Yes. It said that we were live, but we weren't, so that's okay.
I might have hit go live before the countdown. Sorry, guys. It's Monday. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Pam?
Lisa's our super co-host, artist, admin of Pro, as you guys know. Welcome, everyone. Let me check comments. Please, in the chat, we're going to be using this heavily today because we really want to hear from you guys. And we see you guys, Donna Herring, Linda Kane, Robert Simmons, Amy, Claudia, Evelyn, wow, from Paris, Lynn, and Hannah Lisa. Thank you guys for joining us. CJ Walden, thank you for being here. Today is episode 21. The topic is the ups and downs of showing your work. And Lisa and I have, between us, quite a bit of experience that we want to share with you to avoid pitfalls and mostly to, the important things about showing your work are going to be the people who get you. And the people who get you are kind of few and far between unless you're able to educate them. And that's why the words that come out of your mouth, not having that deer in the headlights look when people say, oh, I love your work. Can you tell me about it? And you're like, that's hard because you may feel passionate about your work, but not have those words because you're so shocked that somebody actually liked your work. You're not prepared for that. So we're going to just discuss the ups and downs of showing your work. And how many of you out there, just out of curiosity, have ever shown your work anywhere, whether it's to, a friend, maybe in a cafe or maybe a juried show? Let us know in the chat because we're going to be checking in with you later to see what your experience was like. And we know that a lot of you artists, like we recognize a lot of your names because you're in the pro group. Lindsay Power says, yes, I have. And Susan Henry Scott, I have, yes. And we want to see that because we know Robert Simmons has. Many of you have, Bracana has. And so all of you guys, this is like even though we can't hear you, we can read your chat. So this is very important that it's not just Lisa and I talking and gabbing away. We definitely are going to be talking about things that all of us, let's face it, all of us experience the highs and lows of showing our work. So we're going to kind of get started with, some of the highs, the positives of like showing our work. So Lisa, what's your biggest high of you showing your work?
I would say probably my first show with it was watercolor, and I was a brand new artist, and I was in a women's group, and they wanted me, in their show there at their church. They have a curated gallery. And so I took about 30 paintings. It was all class work. They didn't care. I told them I was brand new, I didn't know anything about anything, but it did well. And it was a very, supported gallery there. And, they really just had so much support and everybody loved it. And so when they had the opening, all these people came. I didn't know them. It wasn't me. It was because they supported the gallery there at the church. And so it ended up being a wonderful thing. I sold like 12 paintings and they were very low priced. I think it was $1,000 total. So, that's 100 or less, right? Each. And, but still they sold, and I felt really good about it, and was so well received. It was a wonderful reception, and then they had a closing reception, which, wow, I'd never even heard of that, and so that was really interesting, and all these people came to that too, and asked and talked and everything, and it was really, really wonderful. Yet I had this false sense of accomplishment because it was really the gallery, the church, that was so well, uh, you know, taken care of. They really loved their gallery, and those people, the patrons came, and so it wasn't about me; it was about the church. Even though they did so support me well for while being there, So I kind of had that false sense of confidence that wow, gallery shows must be all great, and so I wasn't ready for reality
Yeah.
when it hit. But it was good. It's just, I was fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think maybe most of us artists if we've ever shown our work before, we can probably remember that first time, like Lisa, like you remember that because it's such a strange feeling in a way. Like it's a combination of excitement and fear. And like, am I going to be ready versus am I going to be happy? Am I going to sell? Like all these questions run through your mind and you don't know the answer. So number one, it takes a lot of courage to ever show your work. And I think you need to really congratulate yourself if you've ever done it, because it's kind of like putting yourself out there and you're kind of naked in a way, like it kind of has the same icky feeling. And so until you've done it a few times, and let's face it, the more times you do anything, the more you feel comfortable with it, you know what to expect. The first time is probably the scariest, and it can go either way. Like you don't really know. So what we're doing today is we want to make it so that regardless of where you are in your art journey, that there are different times during your art journey where it's going to be like you increase the likelihood of more ups and fewer downs. There's a time in your art journey where you increase the more potential disappointment. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about. So I'll just share like a few of my, I guess my positive feelings that I have felt. And if you guys if you share any of these with me. Now, let's say that I've had shows where I was very pleased with the work I put out there, but nothing sold. And I might have had 20 paintings or 30 or 10. It didn't really matter what it was. However, if one person came up to me and said, wow, like, what is it about this piece? I just really love it. And I don't know why. Now, there have been many times when I've had that happen. And they might also preface that with, I don't have the money to buy that, but I really love it, right? So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to sell the painting, but let's hear what they have to say. And then they try to find the words to express how they feel. The fact that they're standing there next to me and they really want to understand the piece, and then I interact with them and I start to say, well, I'm really glad that you told me that. I'm glad that you told me it makes you feel this way, like it makes you feel happy, or you're not quite sure why it makes you feel that way. And so then again, the more you have the words to share with them what it means to you personally, and perhaps there's a story behind it. I remember one time I did tell a story behind a painting and the person was even more like they loved the painting even more. So when you have a little story to tell, it can oftentimes make that experience for the viewer. And so I feel like a work of art, and I've heard this before, I heard this in grad school, that a work of art is not really completed until it's seen. I didn't really understand that until I started showing my work. Have you noticed that too, Lisa?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, we create work in our studio, we're isolated, we have no real contact with the outside world except for social media now, which we never used to have. Some of us feel like social media can take the place of completing that cycle. And in some ways it does. But as we all know from social media, that feedback is not always positive. And sometimes all we get is a like. Well, what does that mean? A like is a split second that a person hits a little heart. They may be your best friend. They may be just somebody who's in a hurry, waiting in traffic, and they're just like, oh, like. But that's not really feedback. That's not really the personal thing that you get when you actually show your work to the public and you get to interact with them. So how many of you out there have shown your work, and like, what has been a high for you? Like, what has been a tremendous, like, wow, that is a feeling I got that I want to go back to my studio. And that really makes me feel like I'm an artist. I'm understood. Like, can any of you sort of just in chat explain what that felt like when you showed your work? It doesn't mean you sold it. Maybe you did. But what was a high for you when you did show your work? Because we want to really congratulate you guys for doing that. It's a very, very big step. And while you're doing that, Lisa, help me watch the chat, okay?
Okay.
I want to do a little drawing here, okay, that I hope will be helpful. And I'm going to add my tabletop here. And just for a second here, this is something that I use a lot for myself. And move this out of the way. So here's my white piece of paper. I'm going to move all this junk out of the way. And I'd like you guys to think of a big onion, okay, when it comes to showing your work, because this is really important. This is kind of like the spokes and sparks diagram that I drew not too long ago on a different episode. And essentially, again, you're going to be at the middle here, like this, and here's your smiley face. Now this is you when you're just getting started with your art, and you haven't done anything more than maybe you bought some art supplies and you started to play around with them, and having a really good time. Again, you're at the center of this very big onion. Okay, so here's the onion. This is an onion. It's quite large, right? And depending on who in our life has advised us about the art world, we have our parents, we have teachers, we have other artists, we have galleries, and they've all told us that, hey, if you want to be an artist, you gotta be showing in galleries, right? Oh yeah, that's an artist. Oh yeah, you gotta have sales. Don't forget that. Don't forget sales. They're like, how many works have you sold, right? You just had your first show and people are like, well, how much did you sell? We all dread that question. Yeah. And all these other things like, commissions. What are some other things, Lisa, that the society will gauge whether you're an artist based on these things? Maybe awards. Okay. And maybe do you teach, and do you get awards? Do you get into juried shows, right? These are all on the outside of this onion. And when we're new, and when I say new, I'm talking like, let's say your first 1 to 3 years, that's considered a new artist. I was there. I remember being a watercolorist, and I'll just say that one of my, the tricky thing that happened in my first 1 to 3 years, you're kind of excited and you may do some really great work, but it's kind of a one-off. Like, you did it, but it doesn't mean you can repeat it. Well, I did it. I did a watercolor, and it actually got into a New York City juried show. I mean, being kind of silly, I thought, well, what the heck, I won't get in anyway. So I entered it and it got in. And I thought, oh my gosh, it got in, right? So I actually flew to New York City with my mother and mother-in-law, and was like severely disappointed to find out that all the work was like, there's, it's called, what is it called when they double hang and triple hang? Salon style.
Yes.
And the hors d'oeuvres were like these tiny little cheese cubes. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is New York City. Like, what's the big deal, right? And I was just really, really disappointed, and I was not ready. So when I draw this in the middle, this is like, this time period here is a time of great exploration, and you should be playing and exploring, and like the thought of galleries should really not even come into the picture here, because you're really not ready, right, Lisa? Is that how you feel?
That is right. Yes. Of course, it took me some experience to understand that, but
me too. Yeah. Me too. I had to get burned. I'd say paying for that plane ticket and going to see little cheese cubes. Having my mother and mother-in-law there, I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, I just feel like an idiot. Why did I do this? And so anyways, I started to focus more on myself. And this is like a many, many year process here. You start to work on yourself, meaning that as you play, you start to get a better idea of who you are as an artist. And this takes time. Like the way to get between the center and the outer part of this onion is time. That's the only way for you to get there. Time plus work. Okay. You can't do it with only time, because if you do have only time, but you don't show up in your studio, that doesn't work. And if you have work, but you do it in like a very small period of time, like each one of these little circles represents time. Okay. 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, blah, blah, blah. And like any onion, there are layers. Okay. And we have our ups and downs in these layers. And as we go out here, we start to make progress. And we start to have more and more confidence, right?
Yeah.
Now, it could be that like right around this point, we might get a phone call from somebody who says, hey, I saw you work on, social media. Would you like to join our gallery? Or maybe here, I saw your work at an art fair. Maybe you decided to just pop your art into an art fair, and somebody walks by and says, wow, I'd really love to buy that piece. Great, right? So these are, you need some small wins, right? These are small wins. They're little votes of confidence, knowing that, hey, whatever you're doing here in the core, you're working on your personal voice, and good things will happen. So I guess my message is that if you focus on you, your voice, your style, what the design elements mean to you, how you want to orchestrate those design elements in a composition, is your communication, your visual language of art. And what you're doing is you are increasing the validity of who you are as an artist, getting to know yourself better. Like, how can you expect others to love what you do if you don't even know who you are, what you love? And that's all of the stuff here in these early layers here. Give yourself time. I was told early on that give yourself like 5 to 10 years. Now, I know that may sound disheartening, but that's 5 to 10 years before anything really happens. Now, if you try to make that happen inside of 5 years, like it did happen for me inside of 5 years, but guess what? It wasn't a good thing that happened. It seemed good. It's like, looks like a big, beautiful package until you open it. It's like, oh, I guess actually that's a negative. Other things happened to me, like around this period of time as well, when I had a breakthrough painting. I loved it. I knew I had hit upon something really special, and I was asked to put it in a gallery, and I did, but I didn't want to part with it. So what did I do? I put a huge price, like an ungodly price for me at the time, because I was really like I had just learned the medium. And I put that ridiculous price thinking nobody in the world will buy it, right? It's safe because I don't want to sell the painting. Well, it sold. And what that did for me, it was actually not, it was like, okay, first it was a high, right? It felt great. And then I realized that, oh my gosh, now every single painting I do of that size, and this one was 36 by 36, it was an encaustic. And I realized that from now on, every piece I have that's that size, it has to be that price. So I screwed myself because I wasn't ready. I was not ready to have my work sell at that price. And to this day, I regret it, right? This is like 15 years later. It just was a horrible thing, right? But we don't often know the repercussions of what we do. So anyways, this is the onion. Does anyone have questions about the onion? And Lisa, I'll see if I can, I don't know if I can add like all three of these to.
You mean all three of us to the.
Yes.
Let's see here if we can. Here we are.
Okay. We're here.
Yeah.
Does anyone have comments?
Yeah, everybody has had lots of good things, lots of like the good little things that you've done, pointing up. People have talked about, selling, a person selling the painting off their website. Kelly talked about that and
Okay.
how they wrote her an email, how
Oh,
happy, it made them when they look at it. And that is so wonderful, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
that is just ultimate, and those are the wonderful little things that we have, that, we all want. And that's what helps keep us going. And we want our art to touch people, right? So,
Yes.
those are good. And,
And
and,
here's
yes.
Bonnie. My heart
Mhm.
dances with joy when a client resonates, feels uplifted, and connected with the creation, energy, movement, and color within the painting, and how this makes a difference in their lives. So,
Yes.
again, can you see how if Bonnie's art is a form of communication visually, when you get that response from anyone, one person, and we have a big world we live in, right? So to connect with one person is significant.
Yes.
And because they complete the circle of, I put something out there, I'm saying something with my art, and they're responding and saying, I get you, I hear you, I see what you're doing, I see what you've done, I hear what you're saying. And that's why it completes the circle. Because
Yes.
if you don't show your work, here's what's happening here. There's kind of a different little thing going on here. If you're, let's see if I can take this off. I've got acrylic
There you go.
stuff on here, but you can't see that. So basically, here you are again. And when we create art, we are basically, it's a long journey. So this represents a journey. And this is us. Okay, this is us creating art. We have many different things we're trying to say. So we're creating art here, we're creating art here. This could be a series. Maybe this only has like, 5 pieces. This one might be a huge, massive series where we did lots of things and we really loved it. And here's one that just we did one and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that again. But until this work reaches the receiving end, so this is communication here. This is the visual language here, right? So unless we share this and there's a receiving end, I don't have another color of marker, but this represents people who see this work, right? So this person sees that body of work, and this person sees this body of work, and this person sees even, maybe they saw that one and agreed with you and said, maybe they didn't, whatever. They may love it, they may hate it. What if you do this one and this person falls in love with it and says, I want to buy it? That's a problem because number one, you hate it and you never want to do it again. You never ever want to do this again. And you know why? Because it's a realistic painting of a buffalo. I live in Montana, right? So I actually there was a time when I gave a stab at, I never did a cowboy or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me personally, because I don't have that in my background, I didn't grow up on a ranch. We didn't have cows. We didn't have horses. So I might have drawn that. And this one person from Montana was like, oh my gosh, I have to have that painting. Can you do 10 more? And I'm like, if I'm inexperienced, I'm going to say, oh yeah, how exciting. Sure. You're going to pay me $1 million. I'll do it. Right. Oh my God. That would be the biggest mistake you could ever do. So don't do that. Don't do that. You have to love your process so much that if a person sees this piece that you hated, you're going to say, you know what? You can have it. You can pay me for it, but I'm never going to do this again. Like, this is not me. I'm glad I did it. Now, on the other hand, you might have this and you love this body of work, right? You're so excited by this. It has legs like I showed you before. You've got a real spark going on. Now, the first person who sees it might be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. They walk away. Don't even ask any questions. They're like, they roll their eyes and they say that their 3-year-old could do it. Okay. Now, you might get all upset about that, but actually, this is the thing that is you. Anything where you've done more than just one, doing just one means, nope, no, I'm not that interested. The way you know if you're interested in something is whether you can do them again and again and again and not get bored. Keep innovating. Keep saying, what if I did this? And what if I did that? Like this circle here represents a ton of, but what if I try this? Right? And what if I try that? It's completely driven by what if. That is what is happening in a series that has these legs again, right? So we talk about these legs, and they look like boots, but okay. This one again was like, okay, it had potential, but at some point you just kind of it petered out, and you got bored. So what you're looking for are these things that happen, and when you've got this, this grows into this will morph into yet another big body of work, because you'll say, what if I did this? And what if I did this? Right? I'm excited. Well, and then what if I do this? Oh, no, didn't like that one. What if I do this? Ooh, that's even bigger. I'm gonna stay here for like 5 years or the rest of my life. I'm always on this, right? So what you're trying to do is find those sparks, and when you're here and here, okay, that is when you're reaching the outer portion of that onion. That is what you're looking for. And this is you in the middle, right? But it took you many, many years to get to this point. Like this whole thing I'm showing you, where there's like this huge, massive thing that's happening in your art, is quite far in this onion here. It's happening right about like maybe here, usually. Now that doesn't mean no. When we talk about masters and their artwork that we know them for, like Rembrandt or Picasso or Van Gogh or Matisse or any of these artists, like they didn't get this thing here. They got it way out here somewhere. They did a lot of different things, a lot of different series, and they had a lot of these things happen. But we know them for this because that's what galleries wanted, and they were ready. So they got that work out there. And that's why we know them for this. But they also did a lot of these one-offs that we really don't even know them for. Why? Because they only did one, and a gallery didn't want that. They didn't want the one-offs. And what happens is if we go to a gallery and we show them this, and all these other things that were one-offs, this is where lack of cohesion comes in. Okay, we always say, oh, I want my personal voice. But you didn't put in the work to find out what you loved. You only did one-offs. Like you did this one in one meeting. You did this in another meeting. You did this in another meeting, but you weren't excited by any of them. And you're like, well, I want to get into a gallery because society tells me I have to be in a gallery to be an artist. But all you have are these little tiny experiments that didn't have legs. And the gallery's like, sorry. And you're like, oh, I guess I'm not an artist, right? So anyways, I don't know. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, no, it's experience, right? And it's what we have to do, us being here today, Pam, and telling our experiences and hoping that they'll help people avoid things. Sometimes we still have to go through it all, right? And, it can be said that they, had a commission and the person asked them to change the eyes. And they did it reluctantly, hated themselves for not saying no, and won't do it again. But, it's something we have to learn. I'm like that too. I don't like commissions. And actually, I have such anxiety when people ask me to do commissions, and I'm working on one that I've been working on for a year, and I don't know when I'll finish it because, I just can't even think about it, but, it's hard. But as we learn what you showed on your diagram there, and we work and we do the different series, that's the thing about one of the other galleries I got into was she loved my work, but I didn't have a bunch of different series. I didn't even have 2 series. I only had 1 series, right? Yeah. And so in the end they wanted different, and I didn't have different, so I was very inexperienced, and it wasn't a good feeling. And I felt like, what am I doing here? And so now, since I've been in ASM and I'm learning, how to work on different series and just learning how to do it, through ASM. And plus, we're talking about our work. We're learning how to write about it and talk about it. That was the other thing I didn't know with the non-objective work. I did not know how to talk about it. And people would come and look and, wow, I don't know what to think about that. Well, I didn't know what to tell them either, but now I do. Now I can talk about it. And sometimes I still get a little bit of deer in the headlights because I'm still learning, but it really makes a difference because, now this show that I'm in now, I feel more confident about it. And, I'm writing as I'm posting on social media. I'm also on my website. I try to write this stuff on my website below each painting to explain this visual language of art about each painting. And I really think it matters,
Right.
so that people can read it. I know the curator at the art in the salon, actually it's the owner, he wanted to know about my paintings. He'd pick one up and say, "Oh, tell me about this one, Lisa."
Yes.
And also I put info on the back of my paintings.
Yes.
And so I try to put, a little paragraph about it, and he loved reading that. And so, that's just something to think about, to do. And
it's a great idea. And I think now Lisa has a show right now, and she was talking about the salon with her works in it. And, honestly, you're giving the potential buyer, as well as anybody who has an interest in your work. Let's say that you're not there at the gallery and you are showing your work, and the person who owns the gallery, has a work and it's on the wall. And, even they sometimes have a hard time knowing, because with so much work in the gallery, they can't always remember every artist's story of every work. So let's say they take it off the wall and they turn it around, and there Lisa has her little story about the painting. Can you imagine not only what the gallery owner is going to feel like, oh my gosh, thank goodness Lisa did that. Yeah. And also the viewer is going to be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea a non-objective painting could have so much content. Like, I thought it was just a bunch of marks and things like that. Now I wanted to draw attention to Amy Whitehouse's comment, because what she brings up here is a very important thing. And what it is here, she's saying, I've had a measure of success selling my old realistic work, but very little selling my abstract non-objective work. But I'm painting abstract because that's what I love doing now. No compromises. The thing about changing styles, and Lisa talked about this as well, because she has many series. She has, right, Lisa, you've got, how many series would you say?
I do.
Yeah. Right. And you started out with more realistic, and you had great sales. People loved your work, right? So we have work that's easier to understand in our society and work that's a little bit more challenging. A lot of us start with realism or semi-realism or semi-abstraction. Like we start with what we know, and what we know is like what we see. But when you start to move into the abstract world or the non-objective world, we're starting to meander away from easy pickings in a way, like, not to take away from those who love realism, because doing it well is not easy at all. It's just like anything you do well in art is not easy. But as far as like painting what you see versus painting what you don't see, we ourselves have to understand that and be able to put that into words. And when we can break it down into the design elements, it gives us the words to at least say, I'm really moved by the way this line is, because it to me expresses the amazing amount of energy I feel when I'm in my studio. The line is dancing, it's moving, it's full of energy, and it goes from thick to thin, goes from dark to light, because that expresses the way I feel in life. Now, if you say that to a person when you're standing in front of your painting, a non-objective painting, they're going to have a totally different feel for that massive mess of lines. So in Amy's case, that transition from something that's easy to understand to something that's relatively hard to understand, you've just increased, your language has changed. Your language has morphed and grown with you as an artist. And so it is up to you, the artist, to be able to educate others, but also educate yourself. And that's why this visual language of art is so important, because it is the connection between our art, which may be non-objective, and any viewer, whether it's our spouse, our friend, our enemy, a
Yeah.
curator, yeah, anyone, right?
And Marla says that talking about our art lessons are invaluable. And then Lindsay said it's about making an audience for our art, not art for our audience.
Oh yeah. See, I love that because
Yes.
that really is what it is. You're not trying to make, and I used to think this, Lindsay, I used to think that I was painting for an audience. Like I was told that, pretty art, that was my qualifier. Is it pretty? Because I was taught that's what art is. Art is meant to be pretty. It's meant to be sold. It's meant to be loved. But then I later learned that it was like I did that for so long that I finally realized that that was so empty. Did you ever do that, Lisa? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And I would say probably, the most recent thing that was really so awesome was I can't even remember if I posted it on social media, but I was in a Zoom and showed, my work. It was an encaustic piece, and the next day it sold. And
ooh,
it was to one of the
awesome.
people in the Zoom. She could not get it out of her head.
Right.
And, that was just so incredible. And when that happens, that's just amazing and wonderful. And so those things are so great and they get us going, but we do have to create those series. So that is um, a point where you're like, oh, okay, so do I love that piece? Is that something I want to do, and do more of? And so things like that are important to think about and analyze and say, okay, yeah, this one I want to do. I want to have legs with this, and then, but the other one offs, maybe not so much, right?
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about commissions
Mm,
because everybody here who's mentioned about commissions knows that there's kind of like this tension. There's the dilemma between flattery, the idea of being paid for something we do. Obviously, it's a compliment, and we really want inside of us to do a good job, right? We want to do a good job. We want that person to be happy, but we can't control their happiness. All we can control is what we do. And my way that I've found as a compromise, maybe is the right word. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the way that I would look at a commission is that I would say, sure, if you like this piece, you want me to work with these colors. And usually my composition is not one that I would repeat exactly. So I don't think if anyone ever wanted me to do a commission, it's not like they would want the identical commission, but I would say, I'm more than happy to do a piece in this color palette in my style. Now, if you like it, great, you can buy it, but I don't want for you to feel obligated to buy it. And I do not want to feel obligated to paint something that would make me feel like I'm compromising my artistic voice. As long as you make that clear, it's a win-win. Because look, if they don't like it and don't want it, you've just painted a painting that you didn't compromise on. Whereas if they do like it, you just sold a painting and you got paid, and that's all great. But you're not going to be like insulted if they don't like. You're not going to be too sad because you already told them you're
yeah.
not going to make compromises. And I turned down a commission to paint. I used to paint a lot of cows, but I don't do that anymore. So we're talking about a series from 20 years ago, and we had good friends. They've been really, really great friends, and they asked me to do a painting of their cows, and I was so flattered, thinking, okay, I can go back 20 years ago and paint a cow. But then I went home and thought to myself, I gathered all these photographs of their cows. I saw him kiss his cow. It meant to him, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know what? I can't do it. It was really embarrassing, but I said to him, you know what? Thank you for the commission idea, but I really, I'm not there anymore. I don't paint that way anymore. And I really think that I should not do this commission. So I turned it down. I didn't even give it a shot because that was outside of my wheelhouse now. That was actually not in the way I'm thinking at all, not even close. So we move on as artists. And we
Yeah.
have to realize that if somebody likes some of our old work, I hear a lot of you saying, oh, people like my old work, but they don't like what I'm doing now. That's okay. As Lindsay said, you're not painting for that one audience that loved your old work. You're now trying to get to a new audience. You're ready for a new audience.
That's right.
And the way to do that, yeah, social media is one way, but social media is also something we probably should talk about, Lisa.
Yeah, yeah, social media. Also, I want to say about the commission thing is sometimes, especially for non-objective, um, if somebody wants, they love your work but yet they want the colors to match their couch. And, you get that a lot. And okay, yeah, I understand. So maybe do 2 or 3 and tell them, okay, I'm going to do a couple of these and then you can choose. And
Great
so,
idea.
I know that's been good, for people. And sometimes they've sold both, right?
Ooh,
Both pieces. The
yeah,
people end up loving them both. And so
yes.
that's great. Usually they're going to like at least one of them. And so that's always a nice thing to do as well. Although I know a friend of mine, she did that, but it was really big. It was, I can't remember, like 48 by something. And so then they didn't buy both because they couldn't afford both,
Sure.
although they loved both and wanted to. So then she has this big piece
Yeah.
that, now she needs to sell, and it is more expensive. And so, you have to think of that too, in the, the beginning of what you're doing and all. But
Yeah, good. I
anyway,
think that's actually an important point, because if somebody commissions you to do a really large piece, look, your investment of time, materials, everything, it becomes a lot, like you've got more at stake, to the
mhm,
point now where you really can't even conceive of doing that unless you know you will get paid. You're right, Lisa, size is definitely a big consideration. So in that case, you probably do, again, want to have something in writing, a contract. Not that you want that person to like buy it if they absolutely hate it or something like that. But
right,
that becomes, if they want something really large, and you're not really, like, one thing you can do is do mock-ups. Like you would have to do some samples, like maybe some 5 by 7 inch samples, to really start to home in on what it is they're looking for, right? So before you make this big commitment, before you have any contractual agreement, you decide on the palette. You've got, say, 5 different little, maybe you work in a tiny series, 5 by 7, and they're like, cool, yes, I really like it. And you feel comfortable with that. That's when the contract goes in, right? Before you
mhm,
commit to those materials, before you commit to all those
right,
supplies, you've got to protect yourself, because the money may be great, but if they hate it and they're contractually, if they've signed the contract and must have it, you're going to feel awful if you get the money and they hate it, right? And they're going to
right,
hate it too.
right. Yeah, and you can get a down payment even that's, tell them non-refundable, or half non-refundable or something,
Something like
because you do have to protect yourself, right?
Yes. Yes. Now, Derek says, I will not paint according to what anyone loves or is the in thing that sells in my area. That's really key. I will only create what I love to create, no matter what anyone thinks about it. I don't do it for them. Derek, thank you for posting that, because that is, like, I think that's really what it is all about, to be an artist that has focused on the core of the onion. And the more you focus on that core of your onion, the more you're able to have that attitude. And I think of that as a coat of armor. You're bulletproof. People can't hurt you anymore. I remember there was almost this clear point where I felt like, you know what, nobody can hurt me anymore. I used to be so sensitive growing up. Like, my dad would always say, oh, he would say something about the art I did or whatever it was. One time he broke one of my platters. He didn't even tell me, because he thought, what is this? I don't even know what it is. So he threw it away. At that time, and that's in college, so I kind of felt kind of hurt. But now it'd be like, hey, if it were to happen now, it'd be like, oh, looks like you threw my thing out in the garbage. And you might say, yeah, I didn't know what it was. And that's cool, because why would you know? It wasn't even glazed or anything. It was a piece of ceramic. So the thing is, like, as long as how to protect yourself, and because you have belief in yourself. And I also want to point out that your artwork is no different than like your signature. When you sign your name on check after check after check, contract after contract throughout life, your artwork is really your signature. And to get all like bent out of shape because somebody didn't like your signature, I mean, think about it. If you're signing your check at the grocery store and the next person in line says, "Whoa, I totally do not like that signature." What are you going to do? Like return all your groceries so you don't have to sign the check? It's just not a big deal. Like you're just waiting for that person to be in line with like, wow, like that signature is awesome. And I've said that to people before. I love your handwriting, but again, it's no different from your handwriting. So yeah, don't take it too personally. You're looking for that one in a million person who's meant to see your art, love it, and buy it. And if that one person you don't connect in this lifetime, like Van Gogh, who only sold one painting and he sold it to a relative. That's always my thing too. Like I always like to think of artists who are famous who didn't have a lot of financial success. And Van Gogh is like the winner. He sold one painting, you know, can you imagine that?
Well, Kathleen is saying that she has a huge commission she is working on and struggling with. And then Robert said that he did 4 12 by 12 works. I was just looking for it. And to determine what they wanted. And they ended up buying those 4 rather than a large piece. So Kathleen, if you did that, maybe that would help. And then maybe they would want the 4 smaller ones. You know, that's a great idea, Robert. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is a great idea too. Like, wow, instead of committing to a big piece, you know, kind of maybe move your way up the ladder. And yeah, it's, you know, the main thing too is to keep in close contact with that person. You pretty much get a feel for whether this is going to go well or not. That's where play and you know, just being able to email an image, being able to take a photo of an image, documenting your process. You know, if you involve that person in the work you're doing and get them excited, part of it too is that they may not understand what goes into making a work of art.
They
and
don't.
Like right. So if, like Lisa said, if you document, like, you know, here's the first rough draft or rough, you know, thing that I'm doing here, and this is what I'm thinking. Now here's the next stage, and now this is what I'm thinking, and this is how it relates to my life, and this is how it also is what you're looking for, right? You're always marketing. Something that I also want to say, because I know artists hate marketing, right? How many of you hate marketing? Just I'm expecting a lot of yeses out there, but I also want to talk to you about that because it's come into my own life where one of our sons is you know, he might have a change in what he's doing on a daily basis, and he's a very good artist, but he hates the marketing part of it. But when you think about life and what marketing really is, kind of the minute that you open your mouth, you're marketing all day, every day. If you found somebody you love, the word marketing has such negative connotations, but we always want to put our best foot forward. We want people to know what we stand for. And in that process of whether it's our art, that's what we stand for. Whether it's, you know, the career we chose, that's what we stand for. And in that way, we're marketing to the world every day of the year. We're explaining to people what we're about. That's what marketing is. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And so to be able to put into an interesting story who you are, that's all marketing is. It doesn't have to be a negative, bad thing. It can just be, this is who I am. And that's how, like Lindsay said, you connect with that right audience. They're people who understand and relate to your story. So your story is what you're marketing throughout your entire lifetime, from your very childhood, the things you did, the things you believed in, the things you collected, the things you loved. Those are all the things that describe who you are.
You know, one of the things that I think kind of helps or does a little bit of marketing for me is that when I enter exhibitions, that, you know, because when they get accepted, then and even if they don't get accepted, I can post about that in social media, right? So I can say, woohoo, this painting got accepted into this, or gosh darn it, no, this didn't get accepted. Either way, you're putting it out there on social media, you're putting yourself out there, your experience, it's about you and about your art, right? So that's a really good thing. And then whenever you get in exhibitions, and then you can post about the opening, or you can post about the show. So that is social media. You can do that. And any awards you get. And so then that goes to the award thing on the onion, that the exhibitions and the awards. And so that helps to market you, that helps people to get to know you and your story. And you can also then, not every exhibition or award needs to be a series, but maybe it is, and maybe you can expand upon it. It depends on what it is to you. Was it a one-off? But if you like, one of my goals is to get a signature status, and so that is part of why I entered a lot. And now I have got that I get it. Just as soon as this next show happens, I actually get my signature status, and I'm so excited about that. And so that, that's part of the process, right, of doing that.
And it took a lot of hard work, right? And you didn't just do it a year after you started painting. You had to have so many rejections to get to that point.
Yes.
So if you want, that's it too. Like this book I'm reading, The Atomic Habits, again by James Clear, and there's going to be a new installment this month as we start Masterclass 2 with mark making. And what really I guess is driven home to me is that it's part of what we're trying to do is not focus on the result. The whole point of that book is it's not about the result. It's who are you, like, and honestly, all of you guys on a sheet of paper, whoever you want to be, say, I am this. If you strive to be an artist, and you have doubts, like, I'm not sure if I'm an artist. No, you are an artist. And the reason why you want to say you are an artist, say, I am an artist, and I am a person who is responsible, and I am a person who is determined, and I am a person who has courage. What happens with that is your mind, your left brain is like, oh, well, you just wrote that down, so I guess that must mean that that's who you are, right? But then you work backwards. I am an artist. And then the next step below that is, I am an artist, and therefore, I guess I better show up in my studio for 10 minutes a day, right? That's the first thing you're going to do. I'm an artist, so I guess I better show up for 10 minutes a day. And then that 10 minutes turns into 20 minutes. And if you're a person like, I'm a person who is fit, well, I guess I better how do I become that artist? So he talks all about your identity. Your identity as an artist is so important, because you yourself have to say, I am, not I will be. I won't be an artist tomorrow. I am right now. And I'm going to do those things that I know I must do if I'm going to call myself an artist. Okay. So we're going to be working a lot about identity, and it's a big deal, because you are what you think you are. If you don't think you're that, you're not. And if you think you are, you are. It's that simple. It's just a little mind tweak, right, Lisa?
Yeah, I thought that Lindsay's comment kind of went with that people aren't just buying your art, they're buying a piece of you, which is your identity, right? So
they're buying your story. Mm-hmm. And going back to social media and the idea of marketing, because Tina had a really good comment there. I don't know if right. Let's see here. Where did Tina? She had another comment. I don't remember if I pinned it or not, but she said another way to look at marketing is just to be yourself, right?
Yes.
So the thing about being yourself, I can only speak from my own experience, but I think on social media, the tendency is for everybody to want to look super polished, super professional, super successful. That when a person sells a painting, they're going to be like all over social media. I sold this work, everything's about that outer part of the onion. But people being human, perfection doesn't really exist. And that's why social media and what it's mostly about is kind of a big fat facade.
Yeah.
So if you want to market who you really are, that will gain attention, because who you really are, if you're willing to show your imperfections, like, hey, I just applied for this show and I didn't get in, it sucks, right? Hey, that's good, because you just shared something that most people don't relate to as success. And Lisa's done that before, because
Right.
she's real, and people respond to people who are real. Very seldom do you see people on social media like just totally being honest about how they feel, whether it's up or down. But just, it's up to you, though. If you like social media, just remember that. Who are you? Are you trying to put yourself out there as somebody who's perfect and who always has success? Because those people really don't exist. And anyone who tries to make themselves out as that perfect person who always has success, I would be a little bit concerned that that person needs a reality check. Um,
Right.
yeah. So thank you, guys. Yeah, this has been a really great discussion. And let me just see here. Jay had a comment here. Once planned to do graphic design, but after looking around a studio, could not imagine my life in a chip packet. Yeah. Graphic design is a very different world, isn't it? You are constantly getting assignments that you have to match these colors and do that kind of logo. And I've never been in the graphic design world. I don't know. I mean, it is a great, honestly, it's great. It's a great way to make an income as an artist, but ultimately you don't have the freedom you have as a painter, right? So now, Derek, you're asking somebody to clarify.
Oh, I
Okay.
think because
Oh,
she somebody
gotcha.
asked about what the signature status was, and that I mentioned, and the signature status was um, different watercolor societies and groups have the criteria. If you get in a certain amount of shows, certain type of show, then that means, like with this one that I have just achieved, as soon as the show's over, it's gotta get the show over. I get to sign the Northwest Watercolor Society initials after my name.
Yes.
So, I signed my painting and then NWWS. So that's
Right.
something, people in the art world that are in those societies know you worked hard for that. That is an achievement. And so that's just one of the things I wanted to get.
It's important, because just like, some people think that a diploma in art or whatever is important. In some ways, the signature status is probably more telling of an artist's success in the art world, because you can get an MFA and not do anything with your art. Whereas to get a signature status, you have to work really hard. You have to be rejected multiple times. You have to be tenacious and have perseverance and have courage. And those are all the things that Lisa definitely has. And so that's one of the reasons why I really, really admire her, because she is not a quitter. Yeah, sure, she might get a rejection and be like, oh, shoot, whatever. But she gets right back up again, gets out there and does it again. And honestly, if you can take that kind of an attitude and apply it to your artwork, if you're having a bad day, just get right back up there again and just make a mess. Like, if your goal is to make a mess, you'll probably succeed. And
Yeah.
getting up and trying it again. One of these days, that mess will turn into like one of these things that mess evolved into something that you never could have had unless you started out with a big fat mess.
That's right.
Marie is here, and I want to just highlight her comment here.
Yes.
From Norway. She says, that I can do. And I do often talk about art making, how curious I am, how happy I can get if I manage something difficult or discover a new technique. And the opposite, how hard it is to fail. And, Marie just got into a wonderful gallery in Norway. She just had that courage to show up and show her work to the person who owned it. And the guy was like, bring it on, bring over your work. Now she's in a gallery. That takes a ton of courage, guys. But hey, what's the worst thing that can happen? They can say no. So then what? Yeah, you go find another one and you try that, right? So have courage, everyone. And we really support you guys. Want to thank you for being here. And any last comments that I missed, Lisa, that you want to?
People were asking about societies, and you know, sometimes they're online, sometimes they're in person, and that was
I lost you, Lisa. I can't hear you, but.
something about doing is
Okay, I don't
am
know
I
who's
back?
being. Yeah.
I don't know if it was you or me.
I don't know either. Lost what you were saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to say do research and look online. And there are other societies, like the International Society of Experimental Art is one that, that's all different kinds of medias. And they do have in-person shows, but a lot of it's online. And so you just have to, the thing is, when you look at these different societies, it's on their website, right? They're the things that they require for signature status, and they're out there. You just have to look. So
and cafe, do you want to put in that website, Lisa? Are you able to pop
oh,
that in? Because
um,
cafe is
mhm.
call for
call
artists.
for our call for entry. Call, oh gosh darn, it's cafe, but cafe. And then there's also there's juried art shows. That's, I think, what the website's called. And then there's entry thingy.
So
And
not all societies, like societies often have signature status, but the run of the mill juried show, that's kind of a one off. You're not going for letters after your name, but watercolor societies, mixed media societies, pastel societies, oil painter societies, they
right.
definitely have these signature status. So if that's what you want, yes. And in answer to one of your questions, I think it was Derek again. Yes, you can sign your name at the initials after your name. And
Yes.
I mean, that's great as long as you stay, like for me, I got my signature status in watercolor, but I don't do watercolor anymore. So therefore, that status is great. Well, I did sign my name with that, but now I don't. And I also don't I think jury shows are great. There's a certain time in your life in your career, when you want to do that. You decide what it is that, you most want to do. But in general, entering jury shows is a great way to get yourself out there, get used to rejection, because you
Yes.
will get rejected.
Yes.
Okay, you will get rejected, and that's a good thing. Getting yourself used to rejection, jury shows there's no better way than
Right.
getting used to rejection. And then you realize, hey, it's just usually one person's opinion. You start
Yes.
to realize that it's just the juror, right? And
That juror, that day, that minute, right?
that's right. That's right. So I want to thank all you guys for being here. We so enjoy your feedback and your comments and participating in this conversation. So thank you again. We'll see you hopefully next week. Okay. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone. Bye
Thanks.
now.
Bye.